We got our orange circle, so we're good to go. All right, so now we'll start off, we'll talk a little bit about some issues Facebook has faced over the years. These are not testable. These are just things to give a little bit less abstract, a little bit more concrete about the security problems Facebook has had. So, we did cover malicious login attempts. Of course, that's something that's not going away, right? Anybody can go to the Facebook portal and type in any email and any password. Yeah, they're going to take a stab at random things. The best Facebook can do with that is, number one, encourage people to create strong passwords and frequently change them. And B, you can also do this. Should your account get locked out because some bad guy tries, a whole bunch of, attempts to get in and it gets locked up, well, you can designate some of your buddies to help you recover it. Okay. Next one, social engineering attacks. Okay, so this one, China spies Facebook attack NATO. What it is, the general who was at the top of NATO, they were spies from China that were trying to hack his account, basically getting personal information. And what they were really trying to do is make friends with him, make friends with his friends in order that they could get some kind of sensitive data through conversations, right? Like things about troop deployments, long-term plans, stuff like that. Anyway, many of these security issues, they specifically target China, North Korea, whatever. But of course, every country in the world, to the extent of its capabilities, is poking around doing this sort of stuff, right? Every country in the world does espionage. It just so happens that the state of the world today, these are the guys that are mostly looking at what the U.S. is doing. But of course, the U.S. is doing the same thing other places. So I don't mean to, have it be that example, but of course, Facebook is kind of an American thing. Anyway, response from Facebook, crickets, right? What can they do? They can't, lock people out of Facebook. People can always set up new accounts and try to join. What are they going to do? However, they did set up a feature allowing people to report fake accounts. So that was nice. And we have a couple of articles about the algorithms. Facebook wants to get better at detecting fake profiles. One of the things they've done too is if you are some sort of notable person, it becomes more difficult for somebody to set up a fake account with the same name and same picture. So if you're this guy, I forget his name, it's been a while, right? If you're this guy, and we'll dig out his name if we can. James Stavridis, that's right. If you're Mr. Stavridis or Admiral Stavridis, and you can't see what I'm seeing, that's okay. 1 second. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we're going back. If you're that admiral, then you're important enough that Facebook is saying, well, we are not going to let somebody else make a profile with your same name and your same profile picture. Because that's basically what they're doing. They're setting up these phony accounts. Profile pictures are out there. Anybody can lift them. They're in the public, so you can, recognize who the person is. And of course, you can get any name you want. So, yeah, people would try to, create a fake profile with that sort of person. All right. Next thing, 2013. This was a case. Facebook has some troubles with its internal people. Basically, some of its employees were doing some stuff with Java code, a programming language, and they went to a site to get some help on some issue they were having. And when they went to that site, one of them got attacked and got some malware installed on their machine. Facebook found it right away. The guys reported it right away, got fixed. But still, this sort of thing can happen. So Facebook's response, number one, they issued a patch for the Java vulnerability. Facebook didn't issue the patch. Oracle, who manages Java these days, they issued a patch for it. But, funny thing, the patch was later looked at by our Department of Homeland Security and found that the patch itself had a flaw in it. So security's hard. Anyway, Facebook is silent. I don't have much else to say about that, but again, presumably operating with a higher level of Java security. But any application out there, there's vulnerabilities. When people find them, they can attack you. It happens. These software tools that people make, they're very big, very complicated. Nobody's going to catch everything. Okay. So, anyway, Facebook employees on the inside, they're not doing anything bad. They're just browsing around on the internet. People can put bad stuff on their machines sometimes. Okay. 2014. this was an interesting thing. So Facebook became a big vector for scam and malware. Basically, articles would get posted, people would share them, and then when people went to those sites, guess what? They went to a page that was infected with something bad that tried to install something bad on your machine. Okay? Interestingly, Facebook wants to, cut down on these scams, but the more popular an article is, they don't have to try to attack everybody that goes after it, right? If that article is getting 100 million hits, yeah, maybe they only attack a small fraction of that to make it a little harder for Facebook to detect it. So, interesting thing, let's see. Top Facebook scams and malware attacks. Let's do this link first, because this one is kind of fun. It's from 2014. So, we get that out? Yeah, okay. This was the one in 2014. Guess who viewed your profile? Because everybody knows if you go and look at somebody else's Facebook profile, it means you're totally in love with them, right? No, right? But I guess that's what why people want to know or something. Anyway, so yeah, everybody wants to know, oh, who looked at my profile? Yeah. Anyway, naked videos of Facebook friends. Yeah, okay. That was a thing that, yeah, I want to, believe me, once you get to a certain age bracket, you don't want to see that. But anyway, I guess you guys are still in the age bracket where you perhaps do. Various scams, some fucked up stuff, sad video of woman dying during flight, girl killed by husband. Emma Watson, okay, yeah, TNA, some there, okay? So that's the sort of thing that says, these are apps that people put out there that are scams, or they're links to other articles, things that are scams. Anyway, they go there, they're popular stuff people want to see, and then they get malware put on their machine. So, what is Facebook doing? Well, it is trying to catch some of those things, but here's the problem. All right, so let me talk a little bit about the arms race that they're experiencing. So, initially, we'll do that. This is Facebook. Okay, so some user goes through Facebook and connects to some article stored on some server somewhere. Okay. So, we'll do this. Oop. Get most of that. Okay, so this orange guy, this is you, you're the user. You go to Facebook, Facebook links you to the article, and what happens? Well, Facebook isn't detecting if anything's bad. Facebook just says, well, we're linking you to this, and then you go there and you see it and they put some bad stuff on your machine. So what Facebook wanted to do, though, is said, well, we're going to actually include some kind of checking. So we're going to have our own internal people go to a server, right? So it's not just users, but we'll say Facebook employees now. Okay, they're going to do the same thing. So they want to test these things in advance. So some Facebook employee goes through the Facebook platform and gets connected to some article. And if it's bad, then the Facebook employees will see, oh, they're trying to install this bad shit on my machine. I'm going to block it. Then Facebook will stop people from linking to that article. Well, the arms race continues, because what happens, these guys, they say, oh, well, we got a tool for that. What they do, they put a thing in the middle, and they say, we're going to call that a switcher, okay, which is not a technical term. But basically what happens, the bad guys put this tool in between so that when Facebook links to the article, the switcher checks, is this IP address from Facebook? Okay, if the IP from Facebook gets good, clean article, no malware, okay? IP not from Facebook gets the bad stuff. So they were looking at the IP address and saying, oh, is this a Facebook employee? Well, if it is, they send them to the clean version, right? They don't give them any of that bad stuff. So that Facebook says, oh, this page, this link is fine. There's no trouble with it. Then once it gets shared on Facebook, yeah, it looks at those ordinary addresses and says, oh, this is for some person who's not inside Facebook. They get the bad stuff. Yes?
Are we going to need to know all this?
No, this is just a little discussion of the tricks that they do. Yeah. So I'm just saying that, the big picture, security, the bad guys come up with a trick. Facebook tries to do what it can to catch it. The bad guys come up with a new trick, right? It doesn't really stop. Okay. 2015, state-sponsored attacks, okay? People that have Facebook accounts that other governments are looking for them, tracking them for whatever reason, yeah, Facebook is now notifying those people. So they haven't come out and said a whole lot of detail about it, but word on the street is, the principle is, if Facebook detects that some entity has tried to put malware on your machine and they can identify it as likely being a foreign government as opposed to just some random bored teenager, yeah, they're going to say, oh, you're the victim of a state-sponsored attack and you should, blah, 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 be very careful with your Facebook account. So they'll try to help. This is the last good one, and this is in some ways the best. Remember about well-designed systems? Well-designed systems, you can't do a brute force attack. But, key thing, what happened, the Facebook engineers, they made basically a back entry into the site. They were doing some kind of work on it. They made some alternate portal to log into Facebook, to test some features with the login process. But on that backup they made, they did not have any lockout feature. Okay, they didn't have a thing where if you guess 5 times, you get locked out of your account. Some hacker in the UK observed this and said, hey, I can do a brute force attack on this and it'll go through very quickly. Guy could have probably hacked Mark Zuckerberg's account, right? And put a picture of him, change his profile picture to, something whatever. So yeah, that was the thing. So anytime a system changes, there's some engineers doing work on it, they might forget some of these basic things. And that creates a new vulnerability. So what happened? They paid a reward. The hacker seemed to be a very nice fellow. He didn't take advantage of this. He just said, hey, Facebook, you should be more careful. And so they gave him a reward. I believe it was £15,000. So, somewhere between 20K back in the day. And then Facebook fixed it. I'm just saying, brute force attack shouldn't work. But yeah, if they leave that door open, it can. Okay. So, last things. Attacker motivations, who are they? Well, a lot of them these days are governments. The really advanced attacks, they're actually coming from governments, military, and espionage services. Of course, criminal organizations are a thing too, right? They'll try to hack your bank account so they can steal money from you. And of course, there's also just lone oddballs, right, who are, for whatever reason, doing this. All sorts of different motivations, right? Sometimes it's to steal information that's intrinsically valuable, right? Like if you have the ability to hack into somebody's bank account and every time they do a transaction on their account, you set up some code in there where it sends a slice of that money to you as well. Yeah, that's obvious, how you can make money off of that. Sometimes it's for blackmail, right? For example, you guys may remember the site Ashley Madison back in the day. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, so Ashley Madison was, in theory, sort of a dating site for people that are already married. And yeah, so they had a list of their clients. And of course, that was a motive. There was a big hack on Ashley Madison that revealed all that. Basically, they took out, the list of however many million accounts they had, and they posted that publicly. And I'm sure a lot of people got in trouble for that. But had they waited, right, they could have just emailed all of those people individually and said, you know what, give me $10 each of you, or I'm going to post your name as having an account there, right? They could do blackmail like that. Ransom to restore usability. This is a popular thing. A lot of these groups, again, probably both governments and criminal organizations, they're attacking municipal systems, right? So Chicago water supply or Pittsburgh's traffic control systems, whatever. All sorts of attacks like that where basically they lock up the system, right? They encrypt everything and then they say, you can't access this unless you pay us $50,000. A few years, and this happens dozens of times a year. There was a thing with the National Health Service in the UK got hit with this a few years ago. And if you think about a medical operation, right, obviously this is very bad. They can't access patients' records, see what kind of medicine they need, see what their current level of treatment is. Basically everything shifts to a paper system with a great deal more inefficiency. So ransom to restore usability, sometimes to influence policy or site operation. Google got attacked by China a few years ago. Couple of reasons, but one of the reasons was China didn't want Google to allow articles that were critical of the Chinese government to be viewable by IP addresses in China. So they attacked Google and attempted to make that happen. And other times it's just personal, right? Sometimes you want revenge, sometimes you want the fame, sometimes you do it just because, hey, let's see if I can do this, right? The bored teenager thing. So a lot of different motivations, but they tend to be about money. That seems the most common reason. Okay, aggregate damage. How much security damage is there in the world? Well, depending on how you measure it, could be very large, very small. So first link, academic paper estimates the actual costs of security, the damages caused by successful attacks as being about $10 billion a year, which is not really that big. Another example, another way of looking at the problem, says cybercrime costs the global economy $450 billion a year. And that's the aggregate cost of not only the damage caused by attacks, but also of all preventive measures, right? Developing antivirus systems, things like that. And last, this guy, he's trying to sell you security tools. He'll tell you that the cost of, security globally is about $3 trillion a year. Now, I'm not going to tell you any of those are exactly correct, but I will say this, just a big picture life advice thing. Whenever anybody's giving you a number about what something is, and you see multiple people giving you different numbers, always think about the motivation, right? So this gap here between 450 billion and 3 trillion can probably be explained by the fact that this guy's trying to sell you something. It's cybersecurity ventures. And this one is just a news station giving a report, right? The biggest, most, all-inclusive example of security costs, that's what this guy wants to say, right? He wants to say, security is a huge problem and it is critical and you need to come to my site and buy my stuff because, $3 trillion. Yeah. So, other thing, methodology differences. So methodology is just a fancy academic word for how you do something. This guy, right, 10 billion, it's a different definition of security costs than these two. All right. Anyway, last two slides. Organizational security. Number one, employees are the most common breach point. Most security incidents happen because employees are doing something they shouldn't do, right? They fall for a phishing attack, they go to a site that's prohibited, things like that, right? They don't update their passwords, they don't follow security policies. Usually, it's employees. Not always, usually. Most organizations have some kind of monitoring in place on who's doing what. For example, my wife, she has a laptop that she gets from work, and there's all kinds of activity monitoring on that. So, she can still go to Facebook on that device, but she doesn't have latitude to, say, randomly install applications on her device, because that's one of the things that can be a security vulnerability. You don't know exactly what's in an application. Okay. So, things like continuous monitoring with security tools, and then periodically verify that the employee is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's another thing. And then risk assessments. At the organizational level, sometimes they'll do test scenarios, right? They'll send out an email that's a phishing attack. And they'll see, first of all, is our spam folder catching this? And then they'll send out one that they know will get past the spam folder because it'll be, supposedly from the organization's own security team, but if the recipient looks a little closer, they can see it isn't. And there might be some policy in place where if you will never get a notification from our security team that you need to go to an external site and update your password, right? You won't get that notification. So if people actually go and do that, they won't steal their password internally because it's an audit test, but they will say, I see you fell for it. You need to go back and do some sort of remedial training. Okay, and that's a thing that organizations actually do, which can cause problems. Sometimes you'll have some big fish, like a CEO or a partner up at the top of the firm, and they'll get super pissy when some, security guy who's like in his first couple years at the organization will be like, oh, and you have to do some remedial training because whatever, and they'll be like, I'm a partner and you don't have... Yeah, so that is an unfortunate side effect of working in organizational security, but happens. Anyway, as individuals, what can we do? Number one, don't install unauthorized software, right? If you have a work machine, don't just throw some random shit on it because you don't know. Number two, keep your passwords strong, keep your antivirus tools active. When security updates happen, install them, right? Set your default thing to automatically install all updates. What often happens, in fact, in organizations, when attacks happen more often than not, the patch or whatever correction they needed to prevent that attack from happening actually existed in the organization. It just hadn't been installed on all the machines yet. Be alert to suspicious emails. Like again, anything that says to you, your password has been compromised, you need to, go and log in and update it. Yeah, if you get an email like that, you might want to call down to the security people and say, hey, is this a thing? Because I got this email and I know we're not supposed to do that. Okay. Regularly back up important documents. This is a big deal for the municipalities that get hit by the ransomware attacks. Right? If they're smart, they have a backup system. They have backup copies of all their documents. It's going to be a headache. They might lose all their originals because it's all, they're not going to pay that. But at least the system can keep up and running. Because you think about, a big city, they have like pension plans to administer. They have payroll to process. They need to keep track of who's doing what projects they have active. If they don't have access to all of that, right, everything the government does kind of grinds to a halt for that department. And last, again, anything looks fishy, you're better off asking, right? The bad guys, they want to do all these attacks automated. So, if you actually go and try to talk to a live person, you can usually figure out what's going on. Okay. So that's that. I'm going to pause the capture.